All right, thank you very much. I hope you guys are awake on a Monday morning. Everybody awake? All right, I'm going to need some help from you as we go along. You guys okay with that? Perfect. My program's called Name Tags, and we've all worn a name tag, right? Hello, my name is. We wear a bunch of other ones too, don't we? Based on how we look, how we talk, who our parents are, whether we go to private school, whether we go to public school. We wear a bunch of name tags, don't we? And sometimes they can be limitations, can't they? Like my wheelchair is a name tag. Comes with it expectations and potentially limitations. I want to see if we can get beyond that. So this is where I'm going to need your help. Our motto is, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. So when I count to 3, can I get those of you on this side of the room to say it's not what happens to you? Okay, you guys good with that? Know all those words, everything's cool? All right. Good, good. And then those of you over here are going to answer them with, it's what you do with what happens to you. And obviously this extends all the way up, right? Okay, you guys ready? A little nervous? No? Not at all? Okay. All right, let's see how it works. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you.
Exactly. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. Now, it's really easy to say those words when they're up there on the screen, isn't it? And then something goes wrong. And you go, oh, I can't believe what happened to me. And you forget the second part of it. So I'm going to give you guys permission. I realize we're in a chapel, but I'm going to give you permission to interpret these words however you choose. You do not have to do it in unison. I don't care if you do it in a funny voice, but you have to make this your own. There will be 3 more times that we'll get to this. Okay, you think you can do that? We'll see. I told this to adults at one point, and I didn't think they could handle it at all. Like, I thought their heads were going to explode. Obviously, much higher expectations for you guys than I do for them. Part of the reason I'm here, as Greg said, almost 30 years ago now, I had a skiing accident. I was a ski racer in college. It's my first day of Christmas vacation. I went home. My brother and I went up to Berkshire East, where we'd grown up skiing. We were supposed to train that day, took a couple of warm-up runs, and in the middle of a turn, my ski popped off. And I fell in the middle of the trail, didn't hit anything but the ground, and broke 2 vertebrae. Damaged the spinal cord. So my life changed potentially really significantly. And we're talking about the name tags that we wear. And before my accident, like you, student was the most important part. My father was a teacher. If I didn't do well in school, I didn't get a chance to do much of anything else. But some of what I thought made me different was that I was a ski racer. And that being a ski racer showed people that I was able and that I could do whatever I wanted to do and that I'd be successful, which is one of the biggest questions for all of us, right? Hope and question that I am going to be successful. But then I had my accident, and it wasn't as much about me as it was about what happened to me. But you know what? Some things don't change. I continued to be a student, but when a lot of people saw me, and you might have had this experience as you came in today, I was a paraplegic. Was that a paraplegic? It wasn't as much about me as it was about what had happened to me. And I went from being able and feeling like I could do whatever I wanted to do, to feeling like I was disabled, like I was on the outside looking in. I'm going to do a quick little exercise just to illustrate this. Can I get everybody with a green sticker, a green name tag sticker to stand up, please? Stand up. Okay. All right. Okay. You guys can sit back down. How about everybody with an orange sticker? Can I get you to stand up? Okay. All right. Sit back down. How about everybody with stars drawn on their sticker? Can I get you to stand up, please? Just you. All right, all right. So what's your name? Eli? Eli. So afterwards, come up. I'm going to give you a copy of the film that we made of our, hopefully you still have a DVD player, of the climb of Kilimanjaro. All right, thank you, Eli. The question is, what happened there? What happened there in the first group? It was much easier for the second group to stand up than the first group, right? Because nothing happened to the first group. And then poor Eli's the only one, right? And the thing is that you guys have no idea what I might make you do, right? No, and there's a chance that I can make you look stupid, right? And so you get up and you look around, you're like, okay, well, I want to make sure that I have a friend because if he's going to make me look stupid, I don't want to look stupid alone. We're going to look stupid together. Now, the thing is, the greatest risk we run in school is taking no risk at all. If we spend all of our time following the crowd, we can finish and then somebody says to you, you know what, you can do whatever you want to do. And you go, can you narrow that down a little bit? Because I don't really know what I want to do. I don't know what makes me tick. I don't know what my passion is. Now, Einstein was kind of smart, right? And Einstein said everybody's a genius, but if we judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live the rest of its life believing it's stupid. And the thing is, if we judge everybody by one criteria, it's really easy to feel like a fish who can't climb a tree, right? I mean, there are people who are great in math. There are people who can build their own computers. There are people who tell great stories. There are people who help everybody get along. Like, there's so many different kinds of genius. But if we judge everybody by one criteria, it's easy to feel like a fish who can't climb a tree. Things are going to go wrong, though, aren't they? For all of us. There we go. Are you guys ready? Are you sure? All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Still feels like it's kind of in unison, though. I don't know about that. Anyway, you're getting warmed up, I think. It's still Monday morning, right? Yeah, so what happens to you is what you do with what happens to you, which I think is a great mindset. Donna Volpitta, who created this program with me, thought we needed something more. Thought we needed questions that we could ask ourselves when things went wrong. And I'm going to need a little bit of help on this. I think you guys will know the answers, though. So the first one's about self, and the question is, am I a victim or am I a survivor? What do you think? Survivor? Exactly. Now, about the situation, is it overwhelming or is it a challenge? Challenge, alone or part of a team, one strategy or many? Exactly, which is the one to think about, right? It was like, well, I tried. And it's like, well, what did you try? Well, I tried one thing, right? I mean, how often have we all said that? And like when I was in the hospital, I did not want to be in the hospital. But I had to be in the hospital because I'd hurt myself really badly. I went from 175 pounds down to 125 pounds. I was like a baby. I couldn't get out of bed by myself. I couldn't dress myself. They taught me how to dress myself lying in bed, which is really kind of hard when you can move your legs and harder when you can't move your legs. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't sit up. And so to put on my pants, it was this combination of like a soccer throw-in rodeo lasso kind of thing. Hoping to catch one foot in each pant leg, and I'd pull them halfway up, and then I had to roll over, and I couldn't roll over, so it was like I had to do this windmill thing, like trying to roll myself over, pull up one side, roll myself back. I'm covered in sweat by the time I'm finished. My fly's over my left hip. I'm like, really? Like I'm sitting down, and I look ridiculous. Like this is totally unfair. Not being able to walk was the worst thing that I could imagine happening. In a lot of ways, it was the closest to death that I could imagine going. But it was also, this was the most powerful period of time in my life because something was either going to help me get better or it wouldn't. And so I had to get better every day. I had to get a little bit better or else that life that I saw in the hospital might be my life moving forward. And so I got a little bit better, and I'm just about ready to leave. And the head doctor called me into his office. And he said, you're not ready to leave. And it's totally unfair. Like, he looks like a doctor. He looks smart. He's behind the big mahogany desk. I have my pants all askew. And I go, okay, well, why am I not ready to leave? And he said, because you haven't been depressed. And I was like, really? I did not know that that was part of the program here. But he's looking at me like, this guy doesn't know how much his life has changed. And when he figures it out, then he's going to be really depressed. But I'd always been taught that I could do whatever I wanted to do, that if I was willing to work hard enough, if I was creative enough, I could do whatever I wanted to do. And at 20 years old, I didn't want somebody to say, you know what, sorry, you can't really do whatever you want to do anymore. I wanted to prove to myself that I was not a victim, that I was a survivor, that I could still do whatever I wanted to do. Now, 362 days after the accident, I started to ski. It did not look like this that first day. I had never seen anybody ski in a monoski. They delivered it to the ski room in college. My coach put it together. I went out with him that first day, got all strapped into this thing, and he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, like, we go to the top, right? Like, this is what we do. I couldn't remember not knowing how to make a turn. He didn't want to be the one to say no, so we went to the top, got off the lift, I fell over. He picked me up, And I went, okay, like this is different. I understand that this is different, but I know how to make a ski turn. You put it on edge, you put pressure on it. And so I went into my first turn with a strategy, and I fell over, and he picked me up. We've established a pattern. This is what we did all day long. He eventually took his skis off, held onto the back of my seat, and skied me down because it was the only way that we were going to get down. I did not make one turn that first day. Eventually, I found the balance, but it was like learning a foreign language. I went to Switzerland one summer to the French-speaking part when I was in high school, and I remember waking up the second day thinking, please speak English. Like, please speak English, because my brain had gone numb. I was translating from French into English and English back into French, and nobody could understand me, and I couldn't understand them, and that's what this was like. I was thinking my way down every single inch of the mountain. It was exhausting. My focus was 10 inches in front of my ski tip. And as you imagine, if that's your focus, you get surprised, right? Going across, you're like, okay, I'm all good. Wow, the woods are there again. Uh-oh, I have to go back in the opposite direction. But eventually I went from 10 feet to 100, from 10 inches to 10 feet to 100 feet to 100 yards down the hill. And when I was looking 100 yards down the hill, suddenly I was in charge. The mountain wasn't pushing me all over. It had gone from being overwhelming to being a challenge. Now, we don't do this stuff alone. The day of my accident, the ski patrol skied me down the hill. Ambulance took me to the hospital. Helicopter flew me to the second hospital. My parents and my brother went to the second hospital while I was going through all of these tests. Eventually, the doctor came out and he told them, he said, your brother's broken his back. He'll never walk again. And it was really emotional and they cried. And when they were done, my father said, that's the last time we can cry. We have to be strong for Chris. And they were. And when I think back on it, my parents were strong for us in a lot of ways. But the greatest gift that they gave to my brother and me was the opportunity to fail. We'd try something and we'd fail and they'd say, okay, what are you going to do now? It's like, really, it's on me? You're not going to fix this? And they'd say, no, what are you going to do now? As much as they wanted to protect me after my accident, they let me make my own decisions. I was in the hospital for 2 months. I left the hospital on Friday, went back to Middlebury College on Sunday, went back to an almost 200-year-old school, built mostly out of granite, on the top of a hill, northern Vermont, in the middle of February, in a wheelchair. And I think back on this and think that was absolutely crazy. But it was the greatest thing that I could have done because I realized that my relationship with my friends didn't change. I was still part of that team. Now, a few years ago, I was in Tibet. Tibet's a long way from home, obviously, right? It took 16 hours driving over bumpy dirt roads just to get into China. Then I flew halfway across the world, and when I landed, I wanted to see what I missed. So I drove my car from the airport to my mailbox. Parked my car. My mailbox is one of those collective ones at the end of the street. So parked my car in front of it, started pulling my wheelchair out, and this little girl rode up. She's like 6 years old, on her little pink bike, pink streamers coming off the handlebars. And she said, what happened to your legs? It's the beauty of 6-year-olds, right? We're going to get straight to the heart of the matter here. Now, I've flown halfway across the world. I'm kind of tired. I don't really feel like having a conversation with a 6-year-old. But from the time we're little, we're taught not to stare at someone who looks different, aren't we? It's impolite to stare. There are hundreds of millions of people in the world with physical disabilities. And in a lot of ways, they're invisible because we're taught not to stare. So I felt like I'd answer the little girl's question as best I could. I told her what I told you, that I was a ski racer, that I had a skiing accident. And I tried to describe what happened to me in ways that I thought she might be able to understand it. I said, you know those little bumps on your back? Well, those are bones. And those bones protect the nerves, and the nerves take the message from the brain to the rest of the body. And so like if I want my arm to move, my brain says move. Message goes along those nerves to the muscles of my arm moves. But because I broke 2 of those bones, it's like cutting a power cord. So now the message doesn't go from my brain to my legs or my legs back. I didn't know how well I was doing. Apparently I was doing pretty well. She said, so you'll never walk again? And I said, no, probably not. And she rode away, and as she rode away, she said, well, that's too bad. That's the biggest laugh I've ever had for that. That's interesting. Anyway, She said, that's too bad. And I wish that I had stopped her, because if I'd never had my accident, I never would have been the best in the world at anything. I was the best monoskier in the world. That's an amazing gift, right? To be the best in the world at something, but it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had my accident. This little girl, she just saw the tragedy. She didn't see all the strategies that went from not being able to balance on the monoski to needing to make a better turn, to each plateau that I got to, having to find a new strategy. She just saw the tragedy. She didn't see that potential gift. Thank you. So I don't think that's what that little girl meant when she said that's too bad, do you? You're like, oh, it's too bad that you ski and you climb mountains and you do this other stuff. Things are going to go wrong. You guys ready? This is your line. 1, 2, 3. Exactly. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you, because you know what? Those name tags, those labels, those limitations that we wear, they can change, right? I mean, we saw that mine changed before my accident, then after my accident. You know what? Some things don't change, though. I continue to be a paraplegic. That has not changed, but I also became a world champion. And the next one is the hardest name tag that I've ever worn. I told you I was in the hospital for 2 months. I left the hospital. When I went back to school, so many of my friends said to me, I could never do what you've done. In their eyes, I became a superhero, which is kind of cool, right? Because if we're going to get separated, we want to get separated for something good. Right, Eli? If we're going to get separated, we want to be separated for something good. The thing is, though, it wasn't real. Like, I wasn't a superhero, and in a lot of ways, I had this obligation to live up to what other people thought I was. I mean, none of us want to get picked on, right? And in a lot of ways, we create images to keep ourselves safe, don't we? We think, we've got that one thing, and if anybody knew that one thing that we're hiding as much as we possibly can, if anybody knew that, then we'd be on the outside. We'd be totally ostracized. And we think it makes us unique, right? Because nobody else's problems are anywhere near as significant as ours are. But it makes us human. I mean, everybody feels that way. It was more difficult for me to retire from competitive sport than it was to break my back. That doctor was worried that I hadn't been depressed in the hospital. I became depressed after I retired. When you think you've become the best in the world at what you've done, you've proven that you can be successful. But I didn't know what my identity was. I didn't know what my passion was. In a lot of ways, I felt like I'd been jilted by my passion and brought me to the top of the world. And then when I retired, it seemed like nobody cared. And I fell off this cliff. And I thought, how can I figure out how to be passionate? So Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, he said, success like happiness can't be pursued. It has to ensue as the unintended byproduct of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. I thought, how can I allow myself to be honest? How can I allow myself to be vulnerable? And that's when I decided to climb Mt Kilimanjaro, 19,341-foot Mt Kilimanjaro, tallest mountain in Africa. And I thought if I could get to the top of the highest place that I could find, that people would have to see beyond the wheelchair, to see me, and to see the hundreds of millions of people in the world like me. And if I was going to draw the attention that I really needed to draw, I had to do it under my own power. If I was the first unassisted paraplegic to make it there, then it'd be like breaking a record. In some ways, it'd be like when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile back in 1953, when they thought that a human was not supposed to go that fast, and if he did, that his heart and lungs would explode. And he did, and they watched, and his heart and lungs didn't explode, and then they had to think about things differently. And I kind of wanted to do that. Problem was, we reached this point on the crater rim, and I couldn't get over these boulders. So my crew and the porters, they had to carry me. Carried me for 100 feet. 100 feet of the 13,000 feet we climbed from the 6,000-foot base to the 19,000-foot summit. But to me, that 100 feet meant that I failed. Meant that I failed my team, meant that I failed those hundreds of millions of people. And so we went from the crater rim down into the crater of the dormant volcano, and I was crushed because I felt like I'd failed so many people. I was also livid. I kept thinking, I've got to talk to Dave. Dave was my guide. He developed this vehicle. Sort of looks like a Mars rover married to arm pedal power. He also ran up this 19,000-foot mountain 5 times to scout it out, to find the best route for me. We finally had a quiet moment, and I took Dave aside, and I said, Dave, you disappointed me. You let me lie to all these people. You let me tell them I could do it unassisted, and you knew these boulders were here. You knew that I couldn't do it. And Dave guides throughout the world, and he said, nobody climbs a mountain alone. Everybody does it as part of a team. This is that epiphany moment for me. And I said, I realized this was the lesson that I was supposed to learn. And the guy next to me, Tajiri, had been a porter on the mountain. He'd lost his leg. And we're talking about the name tags, the labels that we wear. And in a lot of ways, in developing countries, they believe that a physical disability shows that God is punishing you and your family. And we first met him. My producer said he should climb with us. And I thought, I don't know if he can make it. It seemed like he'd given up. But we bought him a new leg. He trained really hard. First day out, he said, you never thought you'd see me here again. Well, I'm back. And we've got to learn from these kind of people, because how often do we think that something's impossible, and it's entirely true until somebody does it. One last one. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you.
All right. Thank you all so much. Take care. Thanks.